Hello everyone and welcome back to Coach Craig's Sports, and this is going to be the NFL DFS core pick video for week number 7. So I'm going to start off by saying I am recording this video on Friday, so if there's anything majorly that changes between the time of this recording and the time of lock, I'll leave some comments down below. But essentially what I'm going to do in this video, if you haven't been here before, go through my favorite player at each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defense. Not just like the best player at each position or anything else like that, like an actual core that you could build a lineup from. So, and then as part of that, I'll be going over the price tags for both DraftKings and FanDuel, as well as the projected ownership from thesims.com, as well as the optimal ownership and their points per game. Kind of a couple reasons why I like them overall as well. But without further ado, we're going to start off with quarterback Justin Herbert for the Los Angeles Chargers. He's $7,200 on DraftKings, $8,100 on FanDuel. You know, he's a pretty reasonably priced player. He's kind of in this tier of his own in terms of price tag, especially on the DraftKings side. Not too many other guys right around him at that point. Goes against the Seattle Seahawks this week. Seahawks do not have the greatest defense in the world. They're 21st in passing yards allowed, which actually seems a little bit better than they've played so far this season. But part of it's because they've been so poor against the run as well. I'm not sure how much the Chargers are going to want to run the ball in this game. We'll see how much involvement Austin Eckler has there. Joshua Kelly's banged up at this point, probably going to be out this week. And then maybe you run Sony Michel out there a little bit more. But Justin Herbert, 57 pass attempts in his last game. He did not have a touchdown in that game, unfortunately. Should be in line for some pretty big regression in this game overall. Might get Keenan Allen back this week, although it looks like Josh Palmer might miss with a concussion overall. Maybe Donald Parham, the backup tight end, as well. So if you're playing Justin Herbert, probably looking at a lot of Mike Williams this week, and probably looking at a lot of Gerald Everett if you're looking for that stack. If Keenan Allen's back in GPPs, you might as well take that dart throw as well. In terms of the projected ownership on DraftKings, he's projected about 10% ownership, optimal percentage about 6.3, and he's got just under 19 fantasy points per game on the season at 18.9. That's a number that seems a little bit low, but he's been over 23 points in 3 of his 6 games so far this year. One of those games was his bad rib injury game versus Jacksonville, where he probably shouldn't have played anyways. Not going to count that too much against him. One was against a pretty good Denver defense, so going to write off those couple games, and still, if you write those ones off, he's hitting at about a 75% clip in that case. Then on FanDuel, projected ownership of 12%, 7.8% in the optimal, and then he's just under 18 fantasy points per game there at 17.71. Pretty good play overall. Should be a pretty high-scoring game you would expect with the Seattle Seahawks defense being as poorly as it is. The Chargers defense should be a lot better than it is, but they haven't played that way so far this season, and they really can't stop the run. So it should be a pretty positive game script for Justin Herbert overall and some of these Chargers options. Once again, if you're looking to stack him, probably Mike Williams and Gerald Everett are going to be the 2 most popular ones. Keenan Allen, if he plays, you can go there. And then, like, if Josh Palmer doesn't play, maybe you look at DeAndre Carter or some other cheap option down there as well, whether it's a Michael Bandy and Jason Moore, someone like that, if you really want to go down that far. Then we move over to the running back position with Joe Mixon. He is the Cincinnati Bengals running back, obviously. He is going against the Atlanta Falcons this week. The Falcons are a team that you don't think would be too good against the run defensively. They're 9th so far this season, which actually is kind of big surprise there. Coming in the year, you thought their strength would be kind of that secondary. They're missing Casey Hayward there. Seems like the Bengals threw the ball a little bit more last week, so Joe Mixon was a little bit more limited in terms of touches. I believe he had 14 last week, but every other week besides that, he's had at least 15 overall. So he's been very involved in the running game, a little bit involved in the passing game. Very good play overall, $7,000 on DraftKings, $7,400 on FanDuel. He's always capable of putting up that big 2-touchdown game, 100 yards. So you're getting that 100-yard bonus on DraftKings. Should be a pretty favorable match against the Atlanta Falcons overall. He's had double-digit points in 5 of 6 games so far this season, so a reasonably safe play at that as well. In terms of ownership on DraftKings, he's projected at 16%. His optimal percentage is actually 16% as well, averaging 14.3 fantasy points per game on the season, so not too bad there. Pretty much in line with his price tag of $7,000 on DraftKings. Maybe we get a little bit more juice out of him this week. But on the FanDuel side, projected ownership of 20%, so a little bit more popular over there. Optimal appearance rate of 20.2%, so you're getting a little bit of leverage there. And then on FanDuel, he's averaging 12.27 fantasy points per game. Should be a pretty popular play. Him and Justin Herbert are going to be the 2 popular ones on my list. So if you want to avoid some of the chalk, maybe you switch over to somebody else, but 2 pretty strong plays altogether at that as well. And then we move over to wide receiver. We got Allen Lazard of the Green Bay Packers. He's $6,100 on DraftKings, $6,600 on FanDuel. The Green Bay Packers don't have that many wide receivers left. It looks like Christian Watson is going to be out this week. Randall Cobb's out this week. They're probably going to bring up Winfrey from the practice squad once again. You got Romeo Doubs, who's a rookie, but it kind of seems like Aaron Rodgers has lost some trust with him. Tunyon had the big week last week. But this is a must-win game for the Packers, and I think deep down, Aaron Rodgers knows that he's going to go to a lot of Allen Lazard and probably a lot of Robert Tonyan and probably a lot of Aaron Jones in this game. Should be pretty good for Allen Lazard. Unfortunately, he's only played in 5 games this year. The lowest he's had in a game is 9.3 DraftKings points on the season. So you're getting a pretty safe floor there. You're also getting some upside. I think they're going to move him around the formation just a little bit more. He might end up in the slot a little bit. Going against Rashad Wildgoose, who's like 5'11", so it should be a pretty good matchup for Lazard overall. So he's likely to be a big factor for this Packers team overall this week. In terms of projected ownership, 5% on DraftKings, so not as chalky as some of these other guys we've already talked about. Optimal appearance rate is 5.3%, and on the season, he's averaging 15.1 fantasy points per game, which is actually pretty good for his price tag overall. Then on the FanDuel side, projected ownership is 6%. Optimal appearance rate is 6.6%, so we're still getting a little bit of leverage there as well. 12.5 fantasy points per game on the season. Looking like a great play on both sides overall. Going to be one of my favorite plays on this slate as well. Then we move over to tight end, and I'm somebody that really likes to pay down at tight end. Do you have to go this far down? That's debatable. So Cole Turner is probably going to be the only real tight end for the Washington football team. They do have Amari Rodgers too as a converted quarterback. Cole Turner was a pretty good tight end in college. He had 2 catches for 23 yards last week. In his main playing time, John Bates didn't play last week. Logan Thomas has already been ruled out this week. John Bates is a game time decision, but really hasn't practiced all week. So I expect a lot of Cole Turner once again this week. $2,500 flat minimum on DraftKings, $4,300 on FanDuel. Could be some pretty good upside there. You know, the Packers aren't the greatest against tight ends, or at least they haven't been historically the past couple seasons. So could be some opportunities for him. He gets Taylor Heineke, who does like to involve tight end position maybe a little bit more than Carson Wentz has in recent games, though. Even though everybody likes to say Carson Wentz loves to throw the tight ends because in Philadelphia, all you really had was tight ends. But that's a whole nother story for a different day. Cole Turner, you don't really need too much out of him at this dirt cheap salary. If you can get him, you can pay up for some other good players. Just say he gets a touchdown or 4 catches for 50 yards, you're probably going to be pretty happy with him overall. On DraftKings, his projected ownership's at 0% right now. Optimal appearance rate is 0.1%. Those are both likely to go up as we move along, because when I was looking at things, it was right when Logan Thomas was announced out. John Bates was announced as a game time decision. He's averaging 2.2 fantasy points per game on the season, but he's only played in 2 games. And one of them was just kind of in the backup role. And then last game was his main game where he did end up with 4.3 DraftKings points. And then on FanDuel, still projected at 0% on ownership, 0.1% the optimal. Those are both likely to go up, and then averaging 1.65 fantasy points per game. And then last but not least, we're going to move over to the defense. Oddly enough, the Bengals defense that is going against the Falcons this week, they're $3,600 on both sites. So they're not going to be as popular on DraftKings. They're going to be super popular on FanDuel because they're one of the cheaper price defenses over there overall. But I do like them on both sites, and when you're picking for both sites, in one, you kind of have to take the good and the bad with some of these plays overall. So they're going to be not so popular on one side and pretty chalky on the other side. Obviously, the Atlanta Falcons don't have the greatest offense in the world. Their offensive line has struggled at times. Obviously, one of the strengths for the Bengals team overall is Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard being able to get after the quarterback. If they can do that, put Marcus Mariota under some pressure, kind of stop this Atlanta Falcons team overall. If they can kind of shut down Drake London and Kyle Pitts and limit those guys. They don't have much of a run game either. It's Tyler Algier, it's Caleb Huntley, guys like that. Could be a pretty good week for this Bengals defense overall. In terms of projected ownership, they're at 1% on DraftKings, 2.3% in the optimal, averaging 5.8 fantasy points per game. And then on FanDuel, you'll see quite the opposite. It's 7% ownership, 4.5% in the optimal percentage, so we're losing some there. And then 5.83 fantasy points per game. So a lot better play on DraftKings in terms of ownership, but still a good play on both sides regardless. But with that being said, if you go with the 5 players that I listed here on DraftKings, you'll have $23,600 remaining, $5,900 per player, so nothing bad to sneeze at there. You're going to find some cheaper guys to fill in, probably pay up for a couple other guys as well. And then on FanDuel, you'd have $30,000, exactly $7,500 per player. So a lot of flexibility there, especially on the FanDuel side overall. But with that being said, these are my core 5 picks for week number 7 for NFL DFS. If you guys have any questions related to NFL DFS, be sure to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Also, be sure to let me know your favorite play overall for NFL DFS for week number 7, whether it's on DraftKings or FanDuel. I would ask that you please note which site it's on too, because the pricing does affect a lot of things overall. Once again, my NFL DFS cheat sheets will be going up at webetats.com for both DraftKings and FanDuel. I will try to leave a link to both of those down in the comments as they do become available. But with that being said, if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, it's going to be NFL DFS and NBA DFS. And then with that being said, if you're a new or current subscriber who's yet to do so, also be sure to hit that notification bell down below. It's going to let you know every single time that I post up a new video. And at this point in time, I do the weekly core pick video for NFL DFS for both FanDuel and DraftKings. Obviously, it's combined between the two sites for the players that I like, and then doing the live streams for the Monday night and Thursday night football games for the single game showdown slate, primarily focused on DraftKings. But I know there are some people that do watch it that play on FanDuel as well, so I try to talk about that a little bit as well if I have the time to do so. Hoping to get some more guests on in the near future for that. And then I also do the daily NBA DFS core pick videos Monday through Friday. Going to be doing some on the weekends, not this weekend, but in the future we'll hope to do some as well. So definitely be sure to check that out if you're into NBA DFS as well. But with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. Hopefully you all enjoyed. And then last but not least, special shout out to each and every one of you watching today's video. I truly do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Definitely means a lot to me, and I hope each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.